What is going on, guys? This is Miasin. So obviously, since we got Phantom Nightmare, everything changed. Fire decks are infinitely better than they were before, and that is the reason why I'm bringing you guys my tier list for the 20 best engines that you can play in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, as some of them might be more relevant than others, but basically, for the most part, everything that you're seeing on the screen is, decent to a certain extent. But yeah, anyways, before we go any further, friendly reminder to smash the like and subscribe button. Thank you so much, you are the best. And now let's get right into it. Alright, so the first engine would be the Nadira Servant / Dogmatica package. You can play this in Voiceless Voice and Despia, which are two very good decks. I keep saying that they're the two best non-fire decks out there. I don't think this engine would be the reason why these two decks would be like much better than everything else. Even in their own respective decks, I wouldn't consider them in must play. Anyways, Runic Engine after that. If your deck can play the Runic Engine, and I can think of a lot of decks that can play Runic Engine really well, so obviously Bestial Runic, Goatee Runic, that one's so interesting. And you also use like the fusion monsters to like synchro into the level 6 and then into the level 8 and stuff like that. I do think it's a really nice concept. These cards, they kind of act as engine and non-engine cards because you draw with the fountain, and then you can clear like floodgates and stuff like that. Everything about the Runic cards I just always like, regardless of the format. These cards are just well adapted to always be to just about everything. The Bestial Engine, unfortunately, it's just not really worth playing at the moment. It's sad to say because I think Lubellion is insane, but it just doesn't line up well against the fire decks. But although you could argue that maybe in certain decks it might still make sense, but if you're trying to like cook up like the spice and add this to like your deck, I don't really think it's gonna add anything. And also, this is a Drool heavy format, so Lubellion searching a monster and then the rest of your engine being shut down by the Drool kind of hurts. But what I really do like about the Bestial cards is that it gives you access to Hieratic Seal and Regained, which both allow you to play through Nibiru, and that's actually a very good argument to play these cards. So I guess I will be upgrading them to Experimental. Armored Xyz Engine. It's only good in Goblin Rider and in Shark and maybe in like some weird DDD deck. It's not worth it. Obviously, it's decent in Goblin Rider. Even then, like, you can live without these cards, so it's still somewhat fine, but I don't really think it's that great. The Kashtira Engine, okay, so I don't want to leak anything, but you can actually do quite a lot with two Kashtira monsters. Yeah, there's some nasty combos actually, so I will say that this is actually a very scary engine. And by the way, when I say engine, I'm not talking about just Fenrir. I am talking about several Kashtira cards in your deck. It could actually lead to some nasty shenanigans. Alright, the Brave Token Engine, definitely not worth it. You're playing way too many bricks. It's not like Diabellstar Wanted and the Snake Eyes where there is just no bricks at all. You got Ash, Populous, and then Diabellstar Wanted, Original Sinful Spell Snake Eye. All these cards are good, but in the Brave Token Engine, there is too much redundancy sometimes because you can draw Water Enchantress and the Right, which is not really good. Or you can also draw the Equip Spell and the Continuous Spell, which is disastrous. Or you can draw Griffin with nothing, which is also very bad. So there's infinite ways of getting unlucky. And at best, it doesn't even do that much, and it shuts down your ability to like use your normal summon for something. So I actually think this is like one of the worst engines that you can play at the moment. Not to mention that it trades very poorly into fire boards because they have the Promethean Princess, so that when you summon your token, they just destroy it. And then everything that you were trying to do just doesn't do anything. You can't even get the bounce with the Equip spell because there is no more token to equip. And then you don't even get the negate with the Griffin because obviously you don't control like the token monster anymore. So it is dog shit. Alright, Shuttle Engine. I keep hyping this, but it's so freaking good, man. If you can afford to play it in your extra deck, I mean, extra deck and side deck, because it is like a lot of cards. It's 3 Shuttle Fusion with 1 to 2 Shuttle monsters. Technically 3 if you really want to go overkill with like Abkalon, being able to like get another effect because you can trigger like Ariel to banish 3 cards, the Beast to draw 1 card, and the Dragon to destroy 1 spell or trap. And then obviously Abkalon can negate the Sanctuary so that you blow up everything and you banish everything from the graveyard. It is pretty nasty if you have the space for it, but if you don't, then it is what it is. So yeah, it's a must play if your deck can play it. So obviously in Despia, I do believe it is a must play. It's a really good side deck card for sure. Alright, the Branded Fusion Engine is super interesting. You can play it in Silent Forcer, and you can fix some not really good hands sometimes, or it increases the floor of your deck, and I guess your ceiling to a certain extent. My issue with the Branded Fusion Engine is that on its own, it doesn't really get you to your Silent Forcer engine, or rather Voiceless Voice. So for me, it's like, it's the least good out of all of them, but it's still somewhat decent. Maybe put it in Experimental, honestly, because obviously not a lot of decks can play it either, since it locks you out of non-fusion monsters for the whole turn, which is a little sus. Bunkenjin, pretty much on the same level as Armored Xyz. It's pretty much the same thing. Sky Striker Engine is very, very good. I want to say in the pure Snake Eyes deck, it's even better because you have more room for non-engine, so it makes a lot of sense. And even your extra deck is a little more loose, in a way, because you still have 3 Synchro monsters and then a bunch of Link monsters. So sometimes it might be hard to like fit in like the Kagari. Maybe you're not playing Azalea, because with Azalea you can turn just about like any 2 monsters into Azalea, into Hayate, and then into Kagari. So you always have access to Engage, which I think is really cool. And then Engage gets you to Widow Anchor or Shark Cannon, or like the Hornet, whatever. It really just like depends on what you need. And you can draw some cards. One single Hornet can either make a Hita or a Dark, which could then potentially climb into a Celine, into an Access Code. So it facilitates going second very well. But if you're going first and you have that, if you have like any Sky Striker card, it doesn't really add anything to like your board. Like it's not gonna make it so that you have like a more unbreakable board, which might be a little bit of an issue for me. But still, nonetheless, if you're going second and you got the Sky Striker cards, you are in a very good position because they're all just insane going second. Like literally all of them. Anyways, the Ghost Trick Engine, I just don't think it's worth it if you're trying to play it in like purely. If you are playing it in Goblin Rider, it's decent, but I don't think you really want to play both the Ghost Trick cards and the Armored Xyz cards. It's way too much space in the extra deck. Ghost Trick would be like the double Angel of Mischief with the Alu card, and then Utopic Future and Utopic Draco Future. That's 5 cards if I recall correctly. And then Armored Xyz is, I think, 2 cards. It's the rank 5 and the Dark Knight Lancer, I think. I'm not 100% sure. So it's a little easier to play this engine. But either way, both of them have a Garnet, so it's one of them has to not be worth it, and the other one, meh, decent, but like very borderline. If anything, this one, the Armored Xyz, might be a little more generic, a little more applicable, whereas Ghost Trick, again, it's only like Goblin Rider and Purely, but I definitely would not be playing this in Purely, because then you're just like allowing cards like Nibiru and Joel to actually hurt you, while making, again, your extra deck and just everything about your deck just more susceptible to like all kinds of things. Earthbound is actually very nice. I like the Earthbound cards overall. They do work very well with runic cards because this engine is just very good at synchro summoning. Technically, it was like designed to also be used for fusion summoning, but that's obviously not what you're going to be using the Earthbound cards for, unless you're trying to FTK. I made a video on that, but it's total garbage, so I do not recommend them. Alright, the Danger Monsters or the Danger Engine is very bad. Actually, if anything, it's worse than the Ghost Trick cards. And the reason why I say that is because, again, we are in a Jewel-heavy format. The only deck that could play the Danger cards relatively well would be Tear Elements. And you should not be playing Tear Elements. Not a good deck, unfortunately. It pains me to say this because I love the deck. Anyways, now we've got TG, which is actually super interesting. If you're going first with the TG cards, you can do some nice things, like really nice. So obviously this category, Experimental, is not bad. Like all the cards, or rather all the engines that you see here are decent, and probably worth considering. My issue is that going second, the TG cards just don't really do much of anything. And also, you are playing some actual Garnets. Some cards that if you draw them, you cannot combo. I believe Rocket Salamander, so this card right here, can only special summon a TG monster from the deck, which kind of blows. Obviously, Evo has the same problem, but I will be covering that very soon. Mechanco is very bad. Yeah, I mean, that deck was always bad. The engine was obviously much better, but the main reason why the engine functioned before was because of Isolde and Power Tool, Braver Dragon, and stuff like that. But without Isolde, it's really hard to get your hands on the good Mechanco cards. Like, it's really difficult to, like, dump. I mean, you can still go into Power Tool Braver to get, like, all the equip spells and then trigger the Water Arabesque and Unchained Engine. And by engine, I mean, like, playing Unchained cards in your Yubel deck. I mean, that's pretty good. Is it gonna be tier 1? Maybe not. Yubel is actually a good deck. You know what? It's much better than people think. And if you don't know how to play against Yubel Unchained, you will be giving them some free wins because you might be tempted to just go, okay, I'll go Battle Phase to jump over some of your interruptions and play, but you're forced to attack Yubel, and you're taking all the damage, so that's kind of crazy. And yeah, the deck, I do not believe can function very well without Unchained, so that's the reason why I really do believe they have to be in this section right here. Horus Engine, let's see. This engine is good in Tier Elements, but what else? Honestly, I don't know. Yeah, it's just not really... It's not too bad against, like, the Fire King deck, I think. Like, you summon all of your horse monsters, what are they gonna do? Like, Princess, Destroy? Not really. They don't want to do that. And then Arvada doesn't really... I mean, Arvada can negate the Emseti hand. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to put this in Experimental because it, again, introduces a lot of flaws in your strategy. Like, you start losing to Droll. You don't lose to Nibiru. You don't lose to Valor Imperm with the Horus cards. I mean, unless you're making a Coach King Giant Trainer. These cards will never be bad per se, but are they always worth playing? Maybe yes, maybe no. Alright, the Abelstar Wanted Engine. If you are not playing these cards, you have a huge, massive disadvantage. And I mean it. Yes, these cards are way too good and the most meta-defining cards of this format by a long shot. Okay, Rescue Ace Impulse. So the reason why I have this here, you can play 3 Impulse as well as 1 Fire Attacker, Fire Engine, I forget. It's the level 6, I believe. Draw 2, discard 1 whenever your opponent searches a card or adds a card from deck to hand. It's nice, but you can only really have this in your side deck if you're not playing Rescue Ace. You can play this in Labyrinth because you can play the Ishizu Shufflers, so that you draw 2 and then you discard a Shuffler, and against Fire King, you're basically just winning the game because they have no graveyard, which kind of translates to soul releasing them like turn 0, and you're going like next 0 in the process, so that's actually kind of insane. It's really reminiscent of Phantasme, but if you have good cards to discard, it's always much better. And you can also discard Transaction Rollback and Rumpel Teufel, or the Black Goat Lass. That card name is ridiculous. Definitely a very good package. I'm a big fan. You could potentially side deck it. Again, it's only a side deck option, whereas at least this is main deck worthy. And finally, we've got the Evos, which honestly, I don't think they're as good as the TGs, because again, there's also like Garnets, but you're making Omni Negates, it's pretty nasty. I have heard though that the TGs can make like massive boards and draw like crazy, so I don't know, maybe TG is just like the best engine after Fire King that you can play in your fire deck if you're playing like pure Snake Eyes featuring one other engine, but I don't know. There is no shot Evo can be better, from what I've heard at least. So I will put it at the middle of, I mean, at the end of this, even though I do not believe it's worth it. That's my personal opinion, because you're just adding more cards that are bad going second, but it is very powerful. Maybe it should be over here. Again, fire cards are just like so insanely good that I really can't see how any of them can be like not worth playing whatsoever. You should at least know what they're like, what they do and how to use them. So that's the reason why the least I can do is put them in this category right here. Anyways, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know just how much you agree or disagree with this tier list. And yeah, that's it for this video. I'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace.